I do want to throw out some catnip, though, for the folks who are very angry online. Worst case scenario. How bad could it get? Vanderbilt, Diego Pavia show, running all over the Cats. That could happen.
Or they have like 91 points in 2 weeks.
Oh, they have lots of points.
Yeah, they're close to 100 points in 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I don't know what exactly the worst case scenario, like how bad it could get, because you do still see people on this team that will play on Sundays.
Yeah, that's an important part I think we need to remember.
Right. So, like, I think the worst case isn't the wheels falling off and Stoops retiring midseason. Like, I don't think that's worst case. I think that's actually the easiest out, right? Because then you just go hire Summerall, you move on. It's like the lifeline that Calipari gave you. The worst case scenario would have been Cal staying for another year. So, like, if you have this weird scenario where, like, they lose to Vanderbilt, but they beat Auburn, and then they beat Louisville, and then you're 5-7, and then you're just in this, like, weird little purgatory where Brock's coming back and Bush is coming back, but are they any good? And you're on the hook for a big salary for Brad White, but then you're questioning, like, can the defense, they had all these pros, and they can't stop a nosebleed then. That, to me, I think is even worse, is getting in some gross middle ground where, I mean, you can't pay $44 million for Stoops to go away. Like, if you're thinking the most dire straits, it's being just good enough to suck. And I think if you took a step back, you would say, well, Stoops has brought up enough goodwill to take, to have one of these seasons where he takes a step back. But it's just the outlook, the future could be bleak if you get in this weird middle ground.
You can't afford to get behind the chains in the SEC with recruiting and NIL, and particularly, like, we talk about the teams that the fan bases that pump money in are ones with new coaches or teams that have just come off a really good record.
Yes.
It's going to be hard to raise money if we go 3-9, 4-8. And I mean, we kind of joked about it before, but we could lose that Ohio game. Like, why not? Especially if we play like we did on the weekend.
I've been there for an Ohio loss.
Yeah, that's not guaranteed. So the worst case scenario is you have a terrible season, you fire the OC again because you decide that, well, we need a change. You fire the O-line coach because you decide you need that. You got no continuity on the offensive side of the ball, and then you don't have enough money and I think Stoops does deserve, obviously, to stick around. But then you just go through a period where it's like, well, no one wants to give money to the program, and we're not winning games, and we fall down the SEC. And once you get behind in the SEC, it's going to be hard to come back with the addition of Oklahoma and Texas.
Yeah, the worst case is just Vandegrift just can't play. He can't be a starting quarterback. And if that happens, then the losses will pile up. To me, Nick, like, Bush Hampton's taking it on the chin right now in this fan base, but he's proven enough where he's going to, I think, probably end up building a competent offense here. And Brad White, now, while the defense hasn't been what we wanted it to be last year, they're probably going to end up being a middle-of-the-road defense at bare minimum in this conference. And those two things together will allow them to win some games. When you play out a 12-game season, it just may end up being 5-7, 6-6. And either of those, they're like the same to me. It's 6-6. You're going to Memphis.
6-6 going to Vegas, though. We could have fun in Vegas after Christmas, right?
Yeah, but for the program long term, you're just kind of in this weird, like, you're in a situation where it's 3 years in a row where the arrow's pointing down, where you're coming up short of the expectations. And that they're not necessarily crazy expectations either that they had in either of those years. I think either of the last 2 years, if you won the South Carolina game in 2022 and you win that Vanderbilt game, 2023, and you win the Vanderbilt game in 22, 8-4, I think those would have been looked at as successful seasons. So they're only a game off, really. But this
could have been the game. That's what, and it's Beamer too. Like, this guy's after the game talking about this is his, like, full circle moment where he got offered the job the night that Kentucky beat South Carolina by 30 during the COVID season, and now he's come back as, like, this triumphant hero. And Drew, that was how Stoops climbed the ladder, was beating South Carolina, and now you've lost 3 in a row. And I just
you have to. How does it get flipped? Right? How do you flip it back the other way? To me, there's a lot riding on Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
Like, if he ends up getting it to another level, then that to me is how you flip it. But can you get it to that point? It's hard to know, and the offensive churn you have to wonder if it's just really caught up to them.
We're
right now.
about to find out this weekend how much the players love Stoops and how much they love their OC and how much they love their DC and all the coaches that are surrounding them. Because if they have any care for the program or the coaches, you're going to see a very, very good effort this week.